Hello, everyone, and welcome to Staying Ahead of the Curve. I'm Jeff Snyder, Vice President, Senior Consultant with Camac Retirement Group, and we're here live in Washington, D.C. at the Spark National Conference. And I am pleased to be joined by Spark's Executive Director, Tim Rouse. Tim, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Jeff, thank you for having me.
And we know you are so busy. You are in the midst of introducing panelists and coordinating your conference, so we're very thankful for you giving us a few moments of your time.
Happy to be here.
You made your address, this opening keynote address, and you introduced Joe Reddy and Rich Linton, who are the outgoing and incoming presidents of the organization. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about Spark and make sure our audience knows the organization, what your goals, mission are.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jeff. So Spark is the industry association for record keepers, and we have our members have the records of over 85 million American workers. So every major record keeper is a member of Spark, and we are actively engaged in trying to improve constantly the retirement savings system here in the U.S.
And this is a age-old retirement organization. This has been around for a long period of time.
It has. It started as a for-profit entity in the mid-'80s, recognizing the need for conferences. But about 8 years ago, the industry realized that it needed to sort of morph into, and has changed into, a not-for-profit, true industry association.
And you mentioned in your keynote, your opening address, some of the accomplishments of the organization. I wonder if you wouldn't mind kind of expanding that and sharing a little bit with the audience who may not have been in attendance.
Thank you. I mean, we're really thrilled about all the stuff that we're doing. And in the past year, we've had numerous accomplishments that I actually brought up today with our members. The first of which is the creation of our Data Security Oversight Board. And our Data Security Oversight Board actually started last year here at this conference. It has now grown to 39 members. It is made up of record keepers and industry consultants. And the consultant community is there really as the watchdogs, setting the standard for cybersecurity best practices.
Sure.
It has received a lot of notoriety, including from folks here in Washington, D.C. The DOL has learned of our work and has invited us in to meet with them and to keep them apprised of the work that we're doing, because there's a recognition that there is a need to establish a sort of at a fiduciary level some recognition around cybersecurity. We were thrilled that yesterday we came to the really sort of the culmination of a year's worth of work on establishing what that standard is. And now with that standard, my members are going to be able to apply for that standard, be recognized for that standard, and then actually have third-party auditors certify to that standard. So in the past, everyone just sort of self-certified. Yep. and would respond to an RFP process by answering questions as they saw fit. This takes it to a completely new level. And what this does now is establish an independent third-party process by which plan sponsors can now rely upon the actual testing by reputable auditing firms, whether it's a Deloitte or whether it's a PwC or anyone else, to validate the fact that things are being done on a cybersecurity framework the way it's supposed to be done.
And I was just going to mention that this is being done proactively, so there have been no data breaches, but you're looking around, I'm presuming the organizations that our members are looking around and saying, hey, look what's happening in healthcare, look what's happening with credit cards, and saying we need to protect ourselves. And so this is proactive, much in line with what the organization did with information sharing agreements under 403B. So very, very important work in advance of a data breach or a cybersecurity breach.
Absolutely. This is our member firms have for years spent hundreds of millions of dollars to protect financial data. I always say that It's my guess that we probably spend more on cybersecurity than any other industry, the financial services industry, banks, insurance companies, and so forth, than any other entity out there, other than probably the Department of
I
Defense.
was going to say the government probably spends an enormous amount of money.
So, but we are now working with those organizations. We have a track here at the conference. FSISAC is here to talk about what they can do with. So we have a complete track set up for those data security members, and so we're thrilled about that. The other thing that we are thrilled about is that as an industry, we came together back in October, and we really kind of looked at our legislative and regulatory agenda, and we said, as an industry, what are the things that we want to be, as a Spark Association, do we want to be focused on? And we came up with 4 items. One was one that we had traditionally been focused on, and that is e-delivery. And we've made some great strides in getting e-delivery recognized as a medium by which we can communicate with participants. The second was the promotion of open MEPs, or and some people are calling PEPs, which are pooled employer plans. That we think is a very important step forward for a lot of small employers. To be able to kind of group together and get the economies of scale. The third is the continual push for auto features, including auto portability, that we believe are important for the long-term health of the retirement savings for American workers. And then finally is lifetime income. So those 4 items have become the pillars of our legislative and regulatory focus.
Shifting gears slightly in terms of the future, looking out. So you've got the MEPs, and by the way, Vermont just passed a open MEP law, and we're going to see how that kind of fleshes out. They're going to have to build an apparatus and infrastructure around that. But what are some of the things that you're thinking about? So you've got these cybersecurity and the MEPs. What are some of the other initiatives that you think you'll tackle? 2017 and beyond. I'm not going to we're not going to stack the deck on you, but I mean, just to get some ideas.
Well, certainly you touched on Vermont, and we have here at this conference, we have a couple sessions on state-run retirement plans. Mm-hmm. And my members are looking at state-run retirement plans. We'll have a session later on today with Josh Gottbaum from the Brookings Institute. And we'll be looking at that topic. We had a topic earlier on the state-run retirement plans as well. And that is a big focus for my members. Coverage is clearly something that is very important to my members and something that we obviously want to promote. I'll be honest that our members have some differences of opinion on which way to expand coverage. We do believe that one way is through open MEPs. Some members believe that these state-run retirement plans might be the right way. We'll actually be going over later this afternoon with Josh the pros and cons of the state-run approach. Some of my members look at those state-run retirement plans and are concerned, rightfully so, I think, about an erosion of ERISA. And it's through that process that they feel that states could set up different requirements or eligibility requirements that could have a big impact to employers, not just small employers, but even large employers who may now get swept in because you're going to cover their part-time workers or their contract workers or workers who don't meet the eligibility requirement for the 401k plan. So those are all concerns that my members are having, and we'll bring up later on today with Josh.
Fiduciary rule. I don't know if you're aware there's a fiduciary rule.
I've heard of it.
Perspective on the implementation of that. It looks like we got some equilibrium, and we kind of know when the effective date is going to be, at least as of the latest tweets from the White House. But I want to get your perspective on that in terms of your members.
So yes, clearly and my members have been spending an enormous amount of hours and time and resources to be in compliance with the deadline, which is now June 9th. And we were invited in to meet with the Department of Labor on Tuesday morning. I sat down with a number of other associations. They had their concerns. Our concerns as record keepers are really twofold. We originally had last year when we met with OMB had said we feel that there needs to be more time. Now, having said that, our members will be in compliance. We spend, I said, a lot of overtime hours. But the need for more additional time is really because we're finding things as we're going along. Every time the DOL releases an FAQ, there's new questions that arise from it. And so that's really kind of sort of the basis for our desire for more time. We didn't get that time. So one of the things that I asked of the DOL this week was a rapid response mechanism by which we can work with the DOL to help answer those questions as we're coming along. And to give you an example, my members, there is an embedded conflict that occurs between what my members' plan sponsors require of them. And you're very familiar with this, being on the plan consulting side. You understand plan sponsors will come in and oftentimes they will say, look, I'm going to evaluate you based on how you increase participation in my plan, how well you increase contributions in my plan, how well you improve asset allocations in my plan. That's the scorecard that I'm going to use to evaluate you as a record keeper. That comes in conflict with the new fiduciary rules because the guidance that we received back in the last FAQ from the DOL said a plan sponsor encouraging its employees to be in the plan doesn't cross into that fiduciary world. But for the record keepers, it does. So we're being hired as agents, and they had to recognize that there is this embedded conflict. We communicated that to them on Tuesday, and we hope to continue to get some clarification and dialogue on that because I don't think that's the intent. I wouldn't think that they would want to hinder the encouragement of participation in the plan or the encouragement of increased savings in the plan or the encouragement to improve asset allocation in the plan. I don't think that's the intention, but there's this unintended consequence
Sure.
where it creates a problem for my members to actually do the things necessary to make that happen.
And that can sometimes be the result of new regulations, that you have unintended consequences. But what's important, and we actually talked to Beth Bell from Senator Cardin's office about this, is that have that open dialogue. You're educating, you're sharing information. I think your organization does that with members of Congress, with the Department of Labor, and the other regulatory entities. So Tim, I know you are pressed for time. You're going to go introduce the next panel. So we thank you very much for appearing on the show, and we look forward to having you back and wish you the best for the rest of the conference.
Jeff, thank you. Thanks again for being here.